I'm Doug Ubelaker, forensic anthropologist and senior scientist at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. I've had the honor to serve as a guest editor for a special issue of the journal Forensic Sciences Research. This issue of the journal is devoted to my field of forensic anthropology, a field that involves the application of our methods and science in anthropology to medical legal issues. The roots of this field go back into the 1800s, but the field has evolved rapidly in the last few decades. This special issue brings essays from leading anthropologists around the world to focus on many of the key issues that are important in forensic anthropology. The process of anthropological analysis begins with detection and recovery. We have a chapter written by colleagues in Australia that presents recent research on new approaches to the detection of clandestine human remains and experimental research that enables them to not only be detected but recovered in a more efficient way. There's a chapter devoted to co-mingling analysis. Many times when remains are recovered, they're not in individual skeletons, but represent multiple individuals whose remains have been mixed up. This calls for an analysis called co-mingling, where the anthropologist has to figure out how many individuals are represented and if the bones can be reassembled into those individuals for further analysis. Decomposition studies are really important in forensic anthropology. There's been a lot of experimental work on the process of decomposition and the many factors that affect the rate of decomposition. This information is needed in order to estimate time since death when decomposed human remains are found, and also to learn what we can about what's called the taphonomic history of those remains, what happened to them between death and recovery. There's been a lot of good experimental research that's summarized in this special issue. Integral to analysis of human remains is the estimation of age at death. There are chapters in this volume which elucidate new estimates, new methods to estimate age at death, including bone microscopy and a summary of what can be learned from the microscopic analysis of skeletal tissue. We know that DNA is important for identification, and many times the DNA analysis has to be conducted on bones and teeth. That requires special knowledge and techniques to secure the necessary molecular evidence for identification. This special issue has an article focused specifically on DNA and the factors that are involved in efficient recovery of DNA from those tissues. A topic to emerge recently of forensic anthropological interest is the identification of unidentified migrants. As we know, migrations involving humans in different parts of the world frequently results in unidentified human remains found in one country, whereas the origin of those people likely is in another. We have a chapter focusing specifically on the problem at the United States-Mexico border and the recent research and efforts that have gone in to advance those identification issues. Integral to identification of unidentified migrants is new research on chemical isotope studies. The stable chemical isotopes, some of them vary in our tissues depending upon what we ate and where we came from. So new research is focusing on how these isotopes can be analyzed in order to detect the origins of unidentified remains. And this is a tremendous aid for the identification process. And finally, there is an essay on facial imagery, We're all familiar with the images of people's faces that have been generated from recovered skulls that are presented to the public. Facial imagery also is involved in trying to link a recovered skull with a photograph of a person and identifications of images from photographs and video recordings. All of this technology is greatly improved with new computer applications and sophisticated research aimed at clarifying the relationship between skeletal tissue and the overlying soft tissue. All of this is presented in this special issue of Forensic Sciences Research. Please consult this special issue when it becomes available and learn about new advances in forensic anthropology.